You're standing in a kitchen you've never been in, having a conversation you've never had, and for exactly 2 seconds, your brain is completely convinced you've lived this exact moment before. Not, "This feels familiar." Not, "This reminds me of something." Your brain is certain, with total confidence, that you are reliving something that already happened. And then it's gone. That's déjà vu. And here's the strange part. Scientists still don't fully agree on why it happens, but they've gotten a lot closer than you'd think. First, let's clear something up. Déjà vu isn't a memory. That's the trap most people fall into. They think their brain remembers the moment. But when researchers study it, they find the opposite. People who experience déjà vu can't point to when or where the original memory happened, because there isn't one. What they're feeling is the sensation of remembering, without any actual memory attached to it. It's like your brain hits the "this is familiar" button by accident, with nothing behind it. So where does that false signal come from? The most widely supported theory points to a tiny structure deep in your brain called the rhinal cortex. This area's job is to send out a familiarity signal whenever something matches what you've seen before, even before your memory kicks in to confirm it. Normally, familiarity and memory work together. You see your friend's face, the rhinal cortex says "familiar," and your memory instantly fills in, because that's your friend. But sometimes, that familiarity signal misfires. It fires on its own, with no real memory behind it. And your brain, trying to make sense of the mismatch, interprets it as, "I've experienced this exact moment before." Here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. Researchers have actually triggered déjà vu on purpose. In studies using mild electrical stimulation of the brain, usually in patients being treated for epilepsy, doctors found that stimulating the rhinal region could produce the déjà vu sensation almost instantly. The patient would report the exact same eerie feeling people describe naturally, just from a small electrical nudge to that one area. That's about as close as science gets to catching déjà vu red-handed. There's another clue hiding in who experiences déjà vu the most. It's not the elderly, like you might expect from a brain glitch. It's actually young adults, roughly people in their late teens and 20s, who report it most often, and it tends to fade with age. One theory here is that déjà vu might actually be a sign of a healthy brain doing quality control. Your brain is constantly checking new information against old information to catch errors. Déjà vu may be the rare moment you get to see that checking system in action, a little glitch in an otherwise well-oiled machine. As the brain ages and that checking system slows down, the glitches and the déjà vu become less frequent. Not every scientist agrees on the rhinal cortex explanation, though. Another theory suggests déjà vu happens because of a split-second delay in how your brain processes information. Your eyes might send information to 2 different areas of your brain slightly out of sync. One gets it a fraction of a second before the other. Your brain then registers the second, delayed signal as a completely new event, even though it just processed nearly identical information moments earlier. The result feels exactly like remembering something that only just happened. Whichever theory turns out to be right, here's the part that actually matters. Déjà vu isn't your brain malfunctioning. It's not a glimpse into a past life, and it's not a sign something is wrong with you. If anything, it's the opposite. It's a small, strange proof that your brain is constantly working behind the scenes, checking, cross-referencing, and occasionally slipping just enough for you to notice. So next time it happens to you, in a hallway, in a conversation, in a place you've never been, you'll know exactly what's going on behind that 2-second illusion.
Grandfather paradox. If you use a time machine to stop your grandparents from meeting, you might prevent your own birth. But if you were never born, how could you have used the time machine in the first place? Achilles and the tortoise. Achilles, a fast runner, gives a tortoise a head start in a race. The paradox says Achilles will never pass the tortoise because every time Achilles reaches where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved a little. It keeps going like this forever, making it seem like Achilles can't catch up. Ship of Theseus. You have a ship and you replace all its parts. Is it still the same ship? If you use the old parts to build another ship, which one is the original? Sorites paradox. You have a heap of sand. If you remove one grain at a time, when does it stop being a heap? Barbershop paradox. In a town, the rule is the barber shaves those who don't shave themselves. But who shaves the barber? If he shaves himself, it breaks the rule. If he doesn't, he should be shaved according to the rule. Catch-22 paradox. Needing something you can only have if you don't need it. For example, a pilot can avoid dangerous flights if he's insane, but asking not to fly shows he's sane. Fermi paradox. If the universe is infinite, why haven't we seen any aliens? Opposite day paradox. If I say that it's opposite day, is it? Simpson's paradox. It occurs when a trend appears in different groups of data, but disappears or reverses when the group are combined. This shows that the overall conclusion can be opposite to the conclusions drawn from individual subgroups. Tolerance paradox. Unlimited tolerance can make tolerance disappear, as it allows too much intolerance. For a tolerant society to survive, it must not tolerate intolerance. Bootstrap paradox. If a time traveler gives a young Einstein a book with the theory of relativity, and Einstein publishes it as his own, who's the original author? Stockdale paradox. Believing you will soon succeed decreases your chances of succeeding. Meanwhile, maintaining a belief that you will succeed one day increases your chance of succeeding. Jevons paradox. Technological improvements that increase the efficiency of resource use tend to cause an overall increase in resource consumption because people like the product more. Olbers's paradox. Why is the sky dark if there are a vast number of stars in the universe? Paradox of thrift. Saving more money individually is generally a good thing, but it can lead to economic problems for everyone as it could cause reduced consumption and economic growth. Unexpected hanging paradox. A condemned prisoner is told he'll be hanged on a weekday next week, but the execution will surprise him. As the week progresses, he reasons that Friday is the latest possible day for the hanging, since it would still be a surprise on Thursday. But if it hasn't happened by Thursday night, Friday is no longer a surprise. He concludes it must occur on Thursday, yet that would also be expected. Value paradox. Essential things like water are cheaper despite being crucial, while non-essentials like diamonds are more expensive. Pinocchio paradox. If Pinocchio says, "My nose will grow," it creates a logical dilemma. If it's true, his nose should grow, but then he's lying. If it's false, his nose shouldn't grow, but then he's telling the truth. Hedonism paradox. The more directly one seeks pleasure or happiness, the less likely they are to achieve it. Crocodile paradox. A crocodile steals a child and promises its return if the parent correctly predicts what the crocodile will do. If the parent says the child won't be returned and the crocodile agrees, a paradox arises. If the crocodile returns the child, it contradicts its promise. If it doesn't return the child, it also contradicts the agreement. Sword and shield paradox. What happens when a sword sharp enough to cut any shield meets a shield strong enough to block any blade? Dichotomy paradox. Imagine walking towards a destination. To reach it, you'd first have to walk halfway there, and to walk halfway there, you'd first have to walk a quarter of the way there, and so on, creating an infinite amount of steps and causing you to not be able to reach your destination. Fletcher paradox. Though it seems an arrow in motion is continuously changing its position, the paradox argues that at any instant, it can't move to where it isn't, or where it is, making it stationary. Since time consists of these instants, this paradox suggests the arrow is stationary the entire time. Grand Hotel paradox. In an infinitely big hotel with infinitely many rooms, even if all rooms are occupied, the hotel can still accommodate more guests. In order to accommodate you, the hotel could, hypothetically, move the guest from room 1 to room 2. This would move every guest from their current room to a new room, which is possible since there's an infinite number of rooms. Card paradox. What's true if a card has the phrase, "The sentence on the other side of this card is true" on the front side, and the phrase, "The sentence on the other side of this card is false" on the back side? Liar paradox. Imagine that someone says, "I'm lying." If the liar is indeed lying, then the liar is telling the truth, which means that he just lied about lying. Grain of millet paradox. When a grain of millet falls, it makes no sound, but when 1,000 grains fall, they do, thus many of nothing become something. The truth is that it does make a sound. It's just that it's so inaudible that we don't perceive it. Boltzmann brain. It might be more likely for a single brain to spontaneously form in a void, complete with a memory of having existed in our universe, rather than for the entire universe to come about. Paradox of enrichment. Increasing the food available to an ecosystem may lead to instability and even to extinction. Service recovery paradox. Successfully fixing a problem with a defective product may lead to higher consumer satisfaction than in the case where no problem occurred at all. Stability-instability paradox. When two countries each have nuclear weapons, the probability of a direct war between them greatly decreases, but the probability of minor or indirect conflicts between them increases. Ironic process theory. Ironic processing is the psychological process whereby an individual's deliberate attempts to suppress or avoid certain thoughts renders those thoughts more persistent. Paradox of choice. It's the theory that eliminating consumer choices can be beneficial because it greatly reduces anxiety for shoppers. Birthday paradox. To have a 100% probability of at least 2 people in a group having the same birthday, you'd need 366 people. To have a 50% probability, however, you'd need just 23 people. Schrödinger's cat. In quantum theory, a particle can be in multiple states simultaneously when not observed. This state is called superposition. When observed, however, the superposition condition collapses, and the particle is randomly in exactly one of those states. Let's hypothetically say that we put a machine that releases poison only when the particle is in the A state in a box, and that we also put a cat in it. Until observed, the machine would simultaneously release the poison and not release the poison. This means that, until observed, the cat would be both alive and dead. This would obviously work only if we don't consider the cat or the machine as observers. Twin paradox. According to Einstein, the faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. If your identical twin became an astronaut and went on a spaceship that traveled at the speed of light, you'd be some years older than him when he returned. Friendship paradox. On average, your friends tend to have more friends than you do. This happens because people who are social and have more friends are more likely to be your friends. Raven paradox. If you wanted to confirm that all ravens are black, finding a black raven supports your claim. But the paradox suggests that also finding something that is not a raven and not black, such as a green apple, supports your claim. Temperature paradox. If the temperature is 90 and the temperature is rising, is 90 rising? Interesting number paradox. There can't be a smallest uninteresting number as if it's the first uninteresting one. It becomes interesting for that fact. It naturally follows that every single number is interesting. Irresistible force paradox. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Lottery paradox. If there is one winning ticket in a large lottery, it is reasonable to believe of any particular lottery ticket that it is not the winning ticket, but it is not reasonable to believe that no lottery ticket will win. Preparedness paradox. After preparing to avoid a catastrophe and lessening the damage, the perception regarding the catastrophe would be much less serious due to the limited damage caused after.
So let's say you're sitting at home. And you're bored because, let's say it's 1977 and there's no such thing as the internet or smartphones. Looking for something to do to entertain yourself, you suddenly remember that heap of sand that's in the corner of your living room. I mean, everyone's got one of those. So you decide you're gonna relocate the heap of sand to another part of the living room. Except, just to make it fun, you decide to move the heap one grain at a time. Why would you do such a thing? Well, kids, because the one thing they did have in the 70s were drugs. Really, really good drugs. So as you're moving the sand grain by grain, a thought occurs to you. At what point does the heap of sand not become a heap anymore? Obviously, if you move one grain, it's still a heap. Same thing with 2 or 3. But what about 100? 1,000? And once it's not a heap anymore, what exactly is it, besides a big mess on your floor that you're gonna have to clean up later? The Sorites paradox is all about the vagueness of language. Because the word heap doesn't have a specific quantity assigned to it, the nature of a heap is subjective. It also leads to false premises. For example, if you try the paradox in reverse, you start with a single grain of sand, which is not a heap. Then you could argue that 1 grain of sand plus another grain of sand is also not a heap. Then 2 grains of sand plus another grain of sand is also not a heap. This continues until the statement, a quadribajillion grains of sand is not a heap, which, as we know, does not make sense. Of course, moving a pile of sand from one part of the floor to another part doesn't make a lot of sense either. This experience teaches us 2 things. First, language can be subjective and may have a different meaning from person to person. And secondly, don't do drugs, kids, especially in the 70s. But what you should do is subscribe. The Hangman's Paradox. Let's say you're making a cross-country trip, and you get caught speeding in one of those small towns in the south. You go before a judge that has a reputation of being one of the toughest judges around, but you're not too worried. After all, you were just going 7 over the speed limit. How bad could the punishment be? And then the judge sentences you to death. Not only that, he's kind of a dick about it. He tells you that the hanging will take place at noon on one weekday in the following week, but that the execution will be a surprise. You won't know the day of the hanging until the executioner knocks on the cell door at noon that day. The more you think about it, you realize two things. First, that's a terrible surprise. The second thing that occurs to you is they're not really gonna hang you. You've thought about it logically, and here's why you came to that conclusion. You begin by concluding that the surprise hanging can't be on Friday, because if he hasn't hanged you by Thursday, there's only one day left, and so it won't be a surprise if you're hanged on Friday. You then reason that the surprise hanging can't be on Thursday either, because Friday has already been eliminated, and if you haven't been hanged by Wednesday noon, the hanging must occur on Thursday, making a Thursday hanging not a surprise either. And with the same reasoning, you conclude that the hanging can't also occur on Wednesday, Tuesday, or Monday. And joyfully, you retire to your cell, confident that the hanging will not occur at all. The next week, the executioner knocks on your door at noon on Wednesday, which, despite all the above, was an utter surprise to you. Everything the judge said came true. Hopefully this taught you a couple things. First, no matter how smart you think you are, and I know you're smart because you're watching my videos, there's always something you didn't see coming. And the second takeaway? Stay out of the South. If you absolutely have to drive through there, go the speed limit. The teleportation paradox. Speaking of Star Trek, let's talk about teleportation for a minute. We've all seen it. Maybe you're not old enough for Star Trek, but you've seen it used in X-Men Days of Future Past, or Rick and Morty. Goated show, by the way. If anyone wants to talk Rick and Morty, join my Discord, link in description. But while you're sitting there, dipping your chicken nuggets in Szechuan sauce, did you ever think about what exactly happens when you teleport? One minute, you're standing on the Enterprise and wondering why you chose to wear your red uniform shirt. And the next minute, you're on a strange planet fighting a losing battle with a six-headed space monster. But how did it happen? There was a version of you that disappeared, and then in the blink of an eye, you were completely rebuilt and appeared in a new location. But is the new version really you? After all, your old self was just completely destroyed and nothing was left. Is the new version the same, or like the sequel to hit movie Finding Nemo, known as Finding Dory, is the new version just not quite the same? And even if the new version is constructed the exact same way, is your soul really still intact? In other words, if it's even still you, is it really you? I mean, you're made up of all the same stuff, but you're not made of the exact same stuff, if that makes any sense at all. The crocodile paradox. This one comes from the 16th century and actually helped shape the language. Imagine there's a mother who's out for a nice walk with her small child. All of a sudden, a crocodile appears and snatches the child. The woman, who's seeing her hopes of being named Renaissance Mother of the Year go up in smoke, pleads with the croc to return the child. In an unexpected twist, the crocodile not only understands her, it proposes a deal. He'll only return the child safely if the mother can correctly guess whether or not he will indeed return the boy. So if the mother guesses that the crocodile will return him, if she's right, he's returned. If she's wrong, the crocodile keeps him. Are you starting to see the problem here? I mean, a problem other than the fact that she appears to be a really bad mom. But if she correctly guesses that the crocodile never intended to return the child, and that was indeed the croc's intention, then the crocodile has to return the child. But in doing so, breaks his word and contradicts the mother's answer. On the other hand, if she's wrong and the crocodile actually did intend to return the boy, the crocodile must then keep him, even though he intended not to, thereby also breaking his word. This conundrum made such an impression on the people in the Middle Ages that they came up with the word crocodilite to describe a dilemma where you admit something that's later used against you. That's one big reason that, to this day, police still employ the tactic of good croc, bad croc when trying to get a confession out of a suspect. The hot dog paradox. Okay, being real, this one isn't so much of a paradox as it is a question you and your stoned buddies would ask each other in your dorm room at 3 a.m. right after you spent an hour debating which orange came first, the color or the fruit. The question is a hot dog a sandwich? Well, first of all, because I know there are some nitpickers out there, a hot dog is technically just a meat tube. The real question would be, is a hot dog on some sort of bread a sandwich? Notice no one ever asked the real question everyone wants to know. What the hell is actually in a hot dog? As far as the sandwich thing goes, it turned out there is an answer. According to the leading hot dog maker in the world, Oscar Mayer, and the Merriam-Webster dictionary, yeah, a hot dog's a sandwich. But is it really that simple? Surely no one could argue with those authorities, right? Well, say hello to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, which I swear to God is a real organization. Those killjoys over the NHDSC say definitively that a hot dog is not a sandwich. They issued a press release and everything, as well as having an entire page of their website devoted to explaining their position. They list 12 reasons to back up their stance, but we're not listening to them all over here. Get over here and read them if you want, but I figure most of you have watching videos on YouTube time, but not listening to 12 mostly dumb reasons why a hot dog is not a sandwich kind of time. Anyway, the experience machine. Here's a fun one. Let's say you could plug into a machine that would give you any experience you desired. Super duper neuropsychologists could simulate your brain so that you would think and feel that you were writing a great novel, making a friend, or reading an interesting book. Think of it like entering the Matrix voluntarily. You're just floating in a tank with electrolytes attached, but because you're pre-programmed, feels like you're out there, racing at Daytona, climbing Mount Everest, or reading a great book with Sydney Sweeney. Because we live in a universe with no apparent purpose, and because our lives are often characterized by less than ideal conditions like working, suffering, and being a Jets fan, we have no good reason to not opt for something substantially better, even if it's quote-unquote artificial. But what about human dignity? What about satisfying our true desires? Do those things matter as much as fulfilling every desire you have? This question has been debated by philosophers for centuries, but in fairness, most of those debates happened before Sydney Sweeney was born. Just saying. The free will paradox. Let's talk about free will. We all have it, right? I mean, for the most part. Like, if you've been married 30 years and it's Valentine's Day, you better be giving her some flowers. It's still your free will in play. After all, you chose to send her those flowers, just like you chose not to sleep on the couch for a week. But is free will really an illusion? The argument is there's no such thing as free will because every thought and every decision is influenced by some sort of environmental event. Don't believe me? Okay, try this. If free will is real and it's based on your thought process, tell me what your next thought will be. Are you thinking about how to prove free will is real? If you are, you're doing it in response to my question. Now, are you thinking about how you'd like to reach through your phone and rip my esophagus out? Well, that's just another example of, you know what, I think you get it, let's move on. The card paradox. Here's one to try the next time you're at a party, if you never want to be invited to another party. Take an index card and write, the statement on the other side of this card is true. We'll call that statement A. Turn the card over, and the opposite side reads, the statement on the other side of this card is false. Trying to assign any truth to either statement A or B, however, leads to a paradox. If A is true, then B must be as well. But for B to be true, A has to be false. And oppositely, if A is false, then B must be false too, which ultimately makes A true. Sit back and watch the fun as everyone at the party becomes increasingly annoyed, and pretty soon people start asking other questions, including but not limited to, who invited this guy? And why did he bring an index card and not beer like a normal human being? Would it be morally correct to rip out his esophagus? All very valid questions. And here's my favorite paradox of all time. Unlike many others which have been around for centuries and have been pondered by some of the best minds around, this one was dreamed up in this century and has been pondered mainly on TikTok. This is the Rick Astley paradox. According to Rick's 1987 smash hit, Never Gonna Give You Up, he will never give you up and he will never let you down. But let's say your dog just chewed up the DVD of your favorite movie, the 2009 Pixar classic Up. No problem, since your friend Rick Astley is also a huge Pixar fan, and you know for a fact he has a copy of the movie. But because he's Rick Astley, it's the director's cut, with tons of deleted scenes, commentary from the cast, and all kinds of extras. That's when Rick tells you that he can't give you up. After all, it's right there in the title of the song. But because you had your heart set on watching your favorite movie, and because he won't part with his copy, he has indeed let you down. Rick is sad and struggles to process this information. His eye begins to twitch, his lips move but no words come out, until ultimately his head explodes and he collapses. Great paradox, right? The Foreigner paradox. This is a variation of the Ship of Theseus paradox, where you gradually replace a ship's boards one by one, until eventually the ship has been completely rebuilt with all new boards. The question becomes, is it the same ship? But since nobody builds ships out of wood anymore, let's talk about classic rock bands. In particular, the band Foreigner. They sold over 80 million records in the 70s and 80s with hits like Cold as Ice and Waiting for a Girl Like You. But time is undefeated, and some members have gone to that big jukebox in the sky, while others decided that 50 years on the road is enough. Here's the paradox. Mick Jones was the last original member, and he stopped touring in 2023, but Foreigner still tours and they'll be at it again this year. So what band are we seeing? With no original members remaining, aren't we really just seeing a Foreigner cover band with great marketing? So you're Achilles, the greatest runner in Greece. You're jacked, you have a bad heel problem, but let's set that aside for now. As one does, it appears you've decided to raise a tortoise. Yeah, you're going up against a turtle. What's that? Turtles aren't the same as tortoises, you say? Guess we don't need this guy anymore. Look what you've done. So you challenge this turtle because you enjoy winning and like the simple victories. But here's the fun part. You let the tortoise have a small head start, just to make it more exciting. Well, plot twist. This dude named Zeno is convinced that this race will go on forever. Yep. Okay, here's how it goes. Once the race starts, each time Achilles gets to where the tortoise was, the tortoise is moved just a little bit ahead. When Achilles arrives at that new place, the tortoise has already moved forwards again. The gap is getting smaller and smaller, but Zeno says it'll never actually reach zero. meaning Achilles is destined to always chase the tortoise but will never be able to catch him. In reality, that would make no sense. Achilles would easily overtake the tortoise in like 2 seconds. But in the slightly cooler Zeno's paradox, Achilles finds himself stuck in a never-ending cycle of fractions. I hopefully don't need to explain to you that realistically you can travel distances. But at the same time, can you think of an explanation for why the paradox doesn't affect us? The paradox of omnipotence. You're a powerful, wise being, and everything's going well. You can create worlds, split oceans, and still find time for a heavenly rest. One day, in Philosophy 101, someone asks, "Hey, Almighty One, can you make a rock so heavy that even you can't lift it?" Yikes. Out of nowhere, you, the most powerful being in the universe, find yourself trapped in a never-ending logic loop. If you create the rock, you won't be able to lift it, which shows there's something beyond your reach. But if you really can't make it, then there's something you won't be able to do. Nobody's gonna win. So option 1, you make the rock and struggle to lift it. Let's say you move forward and make that happen, the perfect stone. It's so heavy and big that not even your incredible, endless strength can lift it up. The rock is the winner, meaning there's something you couldn't do. Lift it up. Your all-powerful credit card? Cancelled. Your resume? Gotta update it, get back on LinkedIn. Option 2 is you can't make the rock. Okay, so maybe you see that the first choice is a trick and you think, I'll find a clever way to answer this question. I just won't make the rock. Awesome, isn't it? Wrong. If you can't manage to move this rock, then there's something you're unable to do. You're supposed to be all-powerful, so where's all the power? Or you just make it and lift it as well, but that would again be a task you couldn't fulfill. It's just an endless loop and a very confusing one.
That's all, folks.